Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Simplifying Network Automation with NetGuru. I'm your host, and today we brought back Story DeWeese. Story, thank you so much for coming back on the stream. How have you been?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. Thanks for inviting me back. Doing
Sure.
well, yeah. Excited to be here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for being on. And then Jeremy, he's going to be watching the chat, right, and responding to questions. That's kind of what we agreed upon. So Jeremy is also there. He's just shy. Didn't want to be on the actual stream, but he's watching the comments and everything. So thanks, Jeremy, for doing that also. So today we're actually kickstarting. Hey, there he is. We're kickstarting the month of campus refresh. So we're gonna have 3 live streams around campus refresh topics. Specifically, today we're gonna talk iOS XE. Next, we're gonna talk a bit of Catalyst Center. And the week after, we're going to talk about migrating configurations from like your old 3850s, 2960s, if there still are folks out there, to your Catalyst 9000s and some AI magic that can help you migrate easily the configs. Tell Jared to show his face next time. He'll be on next time. So I was saying, right, it's a bit of magic in the third week, and then holidays are upon us, and we're gonna wrap up the year. But today, Story, tell us a bit about what we're gonna talk around Cisco iOS XE. There's some new features, there's some new switches out there, right? Some Catalyst 9000s that have been launched recently. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We can jump right into it. So I'll go ahead and share out my screen here. So there's a lot actually available upcoming with the network modernization here and the latest innovations in iOS XE. So we'll talk today about 1718, the latest hardware that's just been launched, as well as tooling updates and ways that you can be more efficient and how you're working with your networks. Yeah, so we can get into it here.
Let's go.
So, yeah, just a brief overview. We'll talk about smart switching, get into automation, some innovations, especially around the tooling and the operations there. And then, of course, resources, next steps, where to go from here. Yeah, so just starting off with the smart switches. So, these were actually just launched earlier this year. The release was at Cisco Live San Diego, so back this summer. And these are still very new. So wanted to highlight all the hardware capabilities that we have. So these are the three main pillars is the AI ready hardware. We have the Cisco 9350 and the 9610. They both have Silicon One ASICs and running iOS XE, of course. And we have security fused into the network here. So we never want to be in a place where we're just creating a proof of concept, we're getting things working, and then adding on security at the end, right? We always want to have security infused in every step of the process. So we're ready to go with Hypershield and everything there. And also the operational simplicity with the platform flexibility. So here you have one hardware, one iOS XE, and then you have the choice. So you can work with this device using CLI, using the API, using Catalyst Center, Meraki dashboard, whatever works for you and your network. You can use the same hardware. So this is most exciting stuff that we have coming up here, latest, greatest. And of course, your previous switches aren't going anywhere, right? They're still supported and available. We're just showing this is the next best thing and our next step with the Cisco switches, the smart switches here.
Especially around AI infrastructure as folks ramp up and build their data centers, right? These are exactly the switches for those people.
Exactly. I think that's a key piece here is that everyone is looking to use and leverage AI. So how can we be ready? If you're using it today or if you're going to use it tomorrow, we want to be prepared for that. Yeah, so this is just a sort of a deeper dive into these. I won't get into too many details, but just kind of wanted to call out these two different switches. So the 9350 over here is running your A100 ASIC. And essentially, we have a new stacking architecture here. So it's more flexible with the cabling that you have. You don't need a super long stacking cable anymore. You can use the same cable length for all of them. And there's actually some innovations around the extended fast software upgrade or XFSU. So that's actually coming soon. There's a little bit of a teaser, so you'll get more info on that coming in the next releases here by OSXE. And for the 9610, so down at the bottom, here we have a 10 slot chassis. So you have two supervisors and 8 line cards. And these are actually backwards compatible with your 9606 line cards as well. So you can grab an adapter, just plug them right in, no problems there. And I really wanted to highlight here for the 9610, so there's more port density, okay? So there are better ACL and NetFlow scales here. So definitely a lot of innovation, a lot of power here. And I don't know if anyone here has seen one of these in person, but they're massive, right? It takes like 4 people to move them. So it's awesome over here. And then again, for both of these, okay, so we have the post-quantum security PQC, and this is both in the hardware and the software, so we're ready to go, as well as again this unified experience. So whether you're using the CLI API or dashboards controllers, it's all available and manageable both for onboarding and for management configuration for these devices. So it's really up to you, how you want to work with them, how you want to play. We're ready no matter what. And one of the biggest, I guess, questions that at least for me is top of mind is like, okay, what makes this smart? What is the differentiator here between the previous switches, the previous releases, and today? So of course, again, all of your same expected capabilities, features, those are still included in these smart switches, but they take it just one step further. So, just as you were mentioning, Adrian, with the AI is very important as we're moving forward. Everyone is trying to use and leverage AI to be more efficient, to be more make data-based decisions. So here we can host agentic workloads. So essentially, you can create like a app hosting, for example.
Mhm.
You could host like a small language model directly on your Cisco switch. So you don't necessarily need to buy other hardwares or other compute. Of course, depending on your exact use case, you could run this directly on your switch itself. So this is a huge step up or upgrade from what we've seen with the previous switching capabilities. And we can actually get into app hosting more too, as well as the Cisco Smart Stacking. So I mentioned this just briefly, but there's a new approach to stacking over here. So for the 9350, so it's essentially supposed to be more resilient in how you're creating these stacks. And again, you have one single cable size, so you can stack and configure these however makes sense for you and your network. Get more power that way. And then the post quantum zero trust as well. So these are the three main capabilities or differentiators in what makes these new switches actually smart. So a lot of cool capabilities coming in for this AI ready world.
So with the post quantum zero trust, is that built into iOS XE stories like the TLS 1.3 and all that just coming up? That's quantum ready encryption and all those features.
Yep, exactly. You've got it. Yeah, so we're ready to go there, and yeah, it's very exciting. I think with all this post quantum stuff. I guess one comment I had here was there are some customers who like require quantum and they actually are not able to invest in hardware or a new switch that doesn't have the quantum capabilities. So this is again where we're a differentiator or moving forward future thinking, even if you're not using it, not ready for it today, right? Once you buy the switch, you'll be ready for the future as well. So it's essentially these future proofed networks that we're trying to build up and help you create.
Right, because there's development pretty much as we speak on TLS 1.3 on having all those encryption algorithms and basically
Mhm.
new encryption algorithms that are quantum ready, that cannot be broken by a quantum computer or not easily broken by a quantum computer. So by investing, like you said, into this hardware, you have the assurance that whenever that TLS 1.3 is going to be in iOS XE, you're going to have support for them.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're ready. You're ready to go. And I think that is, something that people are thinking about now is just like you're mentioning about like, okay, how do we prevent, from cracking, I don't know, passwords or codes, right? How do we make sure that we're ready for this? Because essentially we need to prevent or be ready to combat any, quantum computing that's trying to get into our networks. Yeah. So we're trying to take one step and get ahead of the game here.
And there's a quick question that came here before we move on. Do these switches support USB 3.0 SSDs? Do you know by any chance?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can check and we can get back to you. Maybe someone in the chat knows.
Okay, Jeremy, are you there?
But yeah, we can move on for now and come back to this one. So just wanted to highlight the enhanced application hosting here. So of course we've had application hosting on our Cisco devices before, but essentially, as we mentioned previously, the update here is we're ready for using small language models, and there's actually more capabilities. So you have two times the app memory that you had before. So if anyone's not aware of application hosting, essentially there's a CentOS or Linux operating system on your Cisco switch. And this is separate, of course, from switching packets. So there's no overlap or anything, right? It's not going to cause any issues with what you're actually needing the switch to do. But in addition to that, you have the option to host different applications. So previously, the recommendation was, you use one app only, right? You have a certain set amount of memory. So now we've doubled that. And with these switches in the 9350 series, we have two app gig ports. And this could be, our recommended or Cisco ready apps. This could be like Thousand Eyes, for example. We also have third party app hosting, so some different certified applications. But taking a step away from that, right? This could be any Docker container. You can run it directly on your Cisco switch. So huge, huge capabilities here with the application hosting the nations. It's very exciting to see.
Going back to that USB 3.0 SSD question, I see right there that it actually supports 120 and 240 gig SSDs. So it's right there on the slide. So yes, it supports USB 3.0.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I'm glad we have this here, so we're ready to go. Yeah, and then so this is for the application hosting. So this kind of wraps up at least what I had for today on the new smart switches. And there are, of course, tons and tons of resources, Cisco live sessions, right? White papers, data sheets with all the details over here. So then now I wanted to transition a little bit more into the automation side, automation and innovations over there. So I work on programmability and automation all day, every day. So this is sort of the the wheelhouse over here. So essentially, we have the four different days of the programmability automation lifecycle. So day zero is onboarding operations. The day one is your configuration, your programmability. And then day two is the telemetry. So this is any visualization that you have, viewing the trends and the data over time, specifically any anomalies you may have, and the software management as well for day N. So this is kind of like brief overview as to how we use APIs, how we use programmability with our Cisco switches. So this includes, of course, the new 9350, 9610, but as well as previous switches that you probably have in your networks already. And how we actually talk to or work with our devices here is the Yang data models. So we have a few different types of data models. Typically, we'll use these to say go out and configure our devices. We want to make a config change. So similar to in global config mode, we go in, we make a change over here. And then there's also the models that are specific to operational. So if you see the dash opper at the end here, this is the read only or really the telemetry data. It's good for viewing any data, say like CPU, memory, right? You want to get these statistics, get this data and look at it. So this is just a brief overview of to what programmability, what automation is, and then we have many different ways that you can work with automation. But I just wanted to highlight here a few different newer capabilities or new things that we have been working with. So here I'm showing the Yang models, and we also have a Yang tooling called Yang Suite. So this is free, publicly available, and we have recently released the Yang Suite Learning Lab over here. So you may have seen that, yeah, the Yang Suite Learning Lab is available, so you can go and you can get hands-on. You can work with your Yang models and understand how to use them. So this Yang Suite tooling, it's a learning validation environment. So depending on how you want to work with APIs, that could be netconf or restconf or GNMI, right? You can go in and build up a payload and see how it works kind of locally before you create, more advanced scripting and infrastructure architecture over here. So this learning lab, let's see if we can actually go to it here. So you can go to the Cisco DevNet Learning Labs and then search for like Yang Suite here. And I'm looking at this one, the introduction to Yang Suite over here. So you can see we've done a few of these modules and everything. But essentially what I wanted to highlight here is that when you run this, you actually get access to Yang Suite directly. So you can see I have 66 minutes. I actually had started this one earlier, so we can hop over there directly. But you can see that within this Yang Suite tooling, we actually have Yang models loaded already. So this is actually new compared to what you may have seen with the Yang Suite Learning Lab before. So now we've added our Yang set and Yang modules here. So you can actually go ahead and see everything that's already pre-loaded. Before with the Learning Lab, and still you can walk through the guide and see exactly how to go through this process. But if you just want to hit the ground running and you want to say, okay, I know that there's some Yang models, I know I want to learn how to use them, then you can go ahead and get started immediately here with the Yang Suite Learning Lab now.
So you just need the browser basically. You don't need to install anything. You don't need a Docker to spin up Yang Suite. You just need a browser and you go to developer.cisco.com, you access the learning lab, and that's it. You get a link automatically generated when you start the lab, and that link points you to your own instance of Yang Suite where you already have the data models loaded up. So there's really no reason for you not to use this, right? It's just like free Yang Suite already loaded up, already pre-configured, just ready to go for you to explore all the data models and all the options, all the parameters.
Exactly, exactly. So you can really hit the ground running over here. You can just start working with these Yang models directly. And along with this, we also have a learning, so we have the Yang Suite Learning Lab, and we
Mhm.
also have some sandboxes as well. So the advice over here is to go reserve a sandbox, right? So you get a virtual switch available. Then you can plug it directly into this Yang Suite tooling and work with it that way. So you can see exactly how you can work with the device. If maybe you don't have one that you want to plug in directly to this Yang Suite, you can create one on the spot too.
And not only virtual sandboxes, story, right? We're also bringing slowly, pretty much one at a time, hardware catalyst sandboxes. So we have 9200s, 9200 CXs in there, 9300s also will be standalone, also stacked versions of this. So those are also coming up in the sandbox. So folks, be on the lookout. We've been talking about these sandboxes for a while now, but they're trickling in, and we're adding more and more hardware catalyst switch sandboxes on, I'd say, a weekly basis or we'll have by Cisco Live Amsterdam next year in February. Hopefully, we'll be able to have a more than a handful of these sandboxes ready for you folks, so that, like you were saying, Story, right? If I want to test app hosting, these switches already have SSDs in there, so you can start spin up your guest shell. You can run 17.18 on them and test your apps, test your LLMs. And going back to a question here from Keenan, with respect to LLM capability, what is the largest model parameter count that you can run on these? And that, Keenan, it really depends on the, well, LLM or SLM, whatever you want to call it. But this, like we were showing you, right? You have 8 gigs of RAM. You have 4 virtual CPUs available in that Gastro environment, in that app hosting environment. So if the requirements for your LLM, SLM are that or lower than that, 8 gigs and 4 CPUs, and it was, well, about 120 gigs of SSD of actual space, or 240, right? So if your LM is able to run in with those hardware parameters, then it should run on your 9350 also, right? So it really depends on the hardware requirements for LLM or SLM. If it's lower or up to these specifications right here, then you should be able to run that LLM on the switch itself. And then, yes, talking about sandboxes, we talked about Yang Suite. Story, what else we have? And Yang Suite, there's been some developments, right? We've talked about being able to generate Ansible playbooks in Yang Suite automatically. We've been able to show folks how to kind of migrate from SNMP to streaming telemetry and model-driven telemetry using Yang Suite. We've been talking also about the OpenAPI spec that should be available in Yang Suite and also on GitHub, with having OpenAPI specs for our iOS XE data models, right? And I don't know if you want to jump into the Swagger UI yet. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I can jump in here. So we have the OpenAPI Swagger UI. So this is now available. You can work with. This is essentially the REST API for your Cisco, your
mhm.
iOS XE devices. So you may have seen this in Yang Suite already if you've worked with the RESTconf plugin. It looks pretty similar over here to the Open API, the documentation over here. But really, the new capability or the new highlight is you don't even need Yang Suite. We've essentially like decoupled this. So if we go over to the Swagger UI here, so you can go ahead and check it out. Right now, the default is 17.15. We also have 17.12 in here, and we're planning to add 17.18 shortly. So we'll have all the major releases here. Essentially, how it works is it describes how you can work with the REST API. So you add your IP, your host name, whatever here, slash RESTconf, and then say you wanted to get AAA data, for example, then you would add this slash data and the Yang model over here at the end. So you could use, say, like a curl command if you just want to do a very quick test, see if you have reachability. And over here, you can see we have a lot of Git. So we're looking at AAA information right now. And we're getting or just looking at the operational data over here. We also will be adding more models as well. And then you can see the huge list here that we have of any data you may want to get or anything that's of interest to you, right? You can go through all of these. Maybe you're interested in some telemetry, model-driven telemetry, right? You can click on this and see exactly how you can work with the REST API here. And so we're going to continue to invest and work on this to make it more available. But I know there's already similar capabilities for Catalyst Center, for Meraki Dashboard, right? There's great documentation on the REST API, how you can use it, how you can start leveraging it. And so we're bringing this in for direct to device API as well. And this is the innovation here.
Yeah, and this is especially as for developers and as you start automating, or if you're already automating your infrastructure, because RESTconf, right? We've been talking about RESTconf for a long time, and it's a fantastic interface, and you can, but the Open API spec was missing. So something like exactly what you're showing here, where you have a list of all your API endpoints, right? And as you click on them, you have the parameters, you have if it's a post, the actual body, the payload that you need to pass in. If it's a delete operation or whatever it is, you do have completely documented all the Yang data model, but with the REST angle to it. Because Yang data models, they're nice, but it can get very boring, and going through and reading tens of thousands of lines of text and trying to figure out what parameter goes where and what endpoint you need to change, it can get complicated. Yang Suite was super helpful to help folks out, kind of figuring out, right, in a graphical user interface, you load up your model, automatically you see all the options, parameters, what you can change, what you cannot, what's operational, what's config. But beyond Yang Suite, right, having Open API spec is really going to be developer friendly. Everybody's familiar with these specifications, right? Everybody can just quickly go look at them, interact with them, and be ready to configure their devices using the REST API.
Exactly. So it makes this whole process easier, right?
Yes.
It's kind of clearing up some things. Like you mentioned, you don't need to go and read the Yang data model to understand what it does, what the capabilities are. Here, you can just see directly, what is the function that you want to work with and grab it immediately. Start working with that Yang model. Yeah, so it will make the testing process even easier than, using Yang Suite or even than reserving the learning lab, right? You can go in and immediately see the value here, how you can work with these APIs.
And this is a link on GitHub, I see, on Jeremy's. There's a repo for this, right? Like you were saying. So 17.15, 17.12 operational data is already there. And then 17.18 coming up, and also config models.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so those are coming soon. They'll be added in here. So we're continuing to innovate to make more progress over here on this. Yeah, and we also have slightly changing topics a little bit, but we also have, let me go back to the deck here, the virtual switch as well. So C9KV. I know we've talked about this in the past and probably shown it in some demos before, but this is available over on Modeling Labs, and it's available on demand, so you can grab it as needed. And of course, we have Cisco live sessions you can refer to, but as the major takeaway, so today you can get the 1715 on your virtual switch, and in 2026 you can get the 1718.2 on your virtual switch as well. So you can start working this device and see exactly how it works. We can get into a little bit of virtual sandbox stuff too as well. Like this is talking about all on Cisco modeling labs. And then in addition, I know we were talking about sandboxes a little bit briefly, but we have the reservable virtual sandbox. So, okay, over here, I'm highlighting that this is the virtual router, the 8 kV, as well as the always on sandbox. So, if you just want to go do a quick test, right, you can do the same for our 8K, the virtual router over here. And wanted to highlight as well the always on for this virtual switch as well. So this is now available if you want to go get your hands on with a virtual switch. You can see exactly how to do this and how this works. So we can kind of take a look over here. So I'm at the devnetsandbox.cisco.com. Okay, I'm over here. I'm looking at all my different options that I have for sandboxes. So you may see some sneak peeks about hardware. You'll get more details on those later, but essentially I wanted to highlight the virtual the virtual switch over here. So you can go in and I'm not allowed to, oh, I guess I need to relog in, but I may not be able to relaunch this because I already have one launched. But this is essentially the process that you go through here. You'll go to this tile, you'll hit launch. And since I've already done this, here are all my details available. So, okay, it says, hey, gone in, I've reserved this virtual switch. So now it's actually ready to go in and use it. So you can see here, I have been given what, like a day, couple days to test this out, work with it, and it's given me my own, personal credentials over here. So here's how I can actually log in and access this device. So let's see if we can get into it over here. So hopefully you can see this. I'll go ahead and put in the password, and then you can see we have this is the sandbox where essentially like multiple people can log in. So you see somebody has been working with the host name over here. Um, so if we wanted to, of course, change this, then we could say, right, like devnet rules. And you can see, obviously, like people can come in here all the time, make changes to it, and it will be reset every so often, if there are any issues or anything, but it's very resilient. So we'll come back online if it's ever, broken or hit too many times, right? It'll come back on in, I think, 10, 15 minutes, something very quick like this. So you can see, I'm accessing this. Who knows who else is accessing this as well? And this device, so basically, I mean, we're logged in, right? This is a virtual switch. We can check out the capabilities here as well, but we can work with this. I'm just on the command line over here, but I could work with this programmatically as well. So we could see, let me just check out what their current config is over here. So we have our netconf is, already running, already ready to go. And we should see the same or similar for restconf as well. Yep. So we can work with the device using netconf, using restconf. It's ready to go. It already has these capabilities, these features turned on and set up for us. And we can look at the version as well. So we're using,
15, that's pretty new.
what's that? Sorry?
1715, so that's pretty new. Yeah.
Yeah. So recently updated over here. So we've got 1715. And you can see, okay, so we have this switch, which is the virtual switch over here, UADP 8 port. And we're running, again, 1715. So again, this is a way that you can quickly and easily see what's going on with the device, right? You can test out some configs or see what other configs, other people may be working on as well, and go from there. So yeah, this is the virtual sandbox over here, or sorry, the virtual switch sandbox. Yes.
So this is basically the exact same iOS XE that you will run on hardware. Is just you don't have like temperature, right? Or uh, what else you mean? You like specific ASIC hardware ASIC capabilities, right? They will not be in there, but all the other features like you've shown, story, NASConf, uh, NetConf, RESTconf, all of those are there. It's basically the same iOS XE operating system that you're using on your hardware. It's just you're missing those hardware specific features, but everything else is in there.
Exactly. So just like you mentioned, you won't see things like your hardware or sensors, right? You're not going to have
Mhm.
temperature or fan speeds or anything like this. But everything that you could typically configure on like regular Switch, those are the all the major capabilities are in here as well.
So this is like ideal for like a lab environment. As you test things, you spin up your virtual switch, you make your configuration, you test it, and then you can go and push it to your actual hardware to production network
Exactly. So this is a great way to test things out and see how they work, right? Break things
and
virtually
learn.
before you
Yeah.
add. Right, to learn how to do it before you add this into your real production networks over here.
All right, so we showed folks the sandbox, the always on, and this is one of the more popular sandboxes, right? Because it's like it's just a virtual switch that's there available 24/7 for anything. I know folks like John Capobianco and other folks out there are big users of these sandboxes because you have a virtual switch in the cloud available 24/7, and whenever you need to demo something, script something quick, right, it's a switch that's available. You just point your script or your curl command or your postman, whatever it is, to this endpoint. You pass in the credentials, and you have a switch available to you to see how it actually acts once you make those changes. So it's like I said, a very popular sandbox, and I can see why, because you have a free switch available for you at any time.
Exactly. Yes, you can go in and configure whatever feature you want to learn about or see. And obviously there's no issues if you break anything, right? It'll just come back on online. It's very resilient in that way.
Yeah, and we have tests, and the sandbox team has tests, and if you lose connectivity, they just reset everything and bring it back up within 5-10 minutes. And there's a question here from Craig. Do the virtual switches support ZTP? I'm guessing not secure ZTP because of needing Mesa and all that. Just curious. They do support ZTP, and I'm pretty sure also secure ZTP story for the virtual switches.
So the switches themselves do. So for actually like setting up, it's a little bit different with the virtual switch than with actual physical hardware here, right? Because you need to be running DHCP, you need to essentially know where to go over here. Yeah, so it's different for the virtual switch because, well, Jeremy is just mentioning it here. There's no guest shell, so you don't have the ZTP capabilities or the secure ZTP capabilities on the virtual switch that you would have on the actual hardware itself. So that's one key difference here. There's no ZTP on this virtual one.
Oh, okay. I take it back. I thought final reservations every day for dollars on a lot of use indeed. Yeah. And yeah, Ioannis, thanks for joining. I see Dexter in there. Okay, so no guest shell on the virtual switch. Okay. I thought it would be there. Do you know, Story, if there's any plans to bring guest shell to the Cat 9 kV?
I'm not sure if there's any yet,
Okay.
so we'll keep you posted or updated on if this is coming. If we'll get the guest shell over on Virtual Switch, I think it would be cool to see. Yeah.
So the virtual appliance, if hosted in CML, doesn't have guest shell either. Correct. That's right, Craig. And yeah, we don't know when it's coming. I'd be curious to see. There's a roadmap for it. Um, all right, what else we have? We've talked about sandboxes, CML, Cat 9 kV. What else we have, Story?
Let me see if I can go back to the slides here. So I also wanted to bring up Splunk just briefly. I know this is a hot topic for a lot of people who are working with telemetry. They want to collect all of their data over in Splunk and then also visualize it. So how does this fit into the picture of your iOS XE devices? How does this actually work? So typically when we talk about telemetry, you'll create a telemetry subscription over here on your device. You'll say, hey, I want to send, CPU data or whatever data is interesting to you, whatever operational model you have. You want to send this to your collector or receiver somewhere off box. So for the Splunk use case here, you can send that telemetry data, that like raw data that comes from your device, to some collector or receiver, maybe Telegraph or Open Telemetry, or maybe you have your own. And from there, you this essentially formats it in a way that Splunk or another uh, database could understand and receive that information. And then, of course, you're able to visualize it. So we've got a quick view over here of what Splunk Enterprise actually looks like. And there are essentially these three main components. So you have your collector receiver, you have your database, time series database, and you also have the visualization tooling. So with Splunk, these are combined for you. So you're able to store all of your data, analyze it all in one place. So Splunk is really neat in the sense that it takes really anything you throw at it. So we're just talking about this from the iOS XE lens, right? If you have your XE data, just like any other data, you can throw it at Splunk and then actually visualize it and see the trends over time over here. So we're seeing a lot of investment in Splunk. A lot of people are starting to use it more.
And do you know, Story, if there's any plans of having streaming telemetry ingested directly into Splunk without going through something like Telegraph or OTel?
Yeah, this is a good question. So this is something that we're working on. We hope to see in the future here. It's not available today to go directly from device into Splunk. But yeah, hopefully soon we'll be able to see this, and this is something we're working towards. So this is one of the reasons I bring it up is we're trying to actively work on this integration. So for things like a Catalyst Center over here, we have like our apps right within
Hmm.
the Slack base. So we're essentially trying to create something similar, or maybe in addition to the Catalyst Center option for direct to XE data. Yeah.
Gotcha. That'd be nice to see coming up.
Yeah, it'll be super exciting to see this. I'm looking forward to it. And then also, I wanted to briefly mention atomic operations as well. So, just wanted to introduce the atomic config replace. So, this is a new capabilities that's on XE. So, essentially, the idea here is you want to apply everything or nothing. You don't want to be somewhere in between in this like partial config state. You want just everything or nothing here. So, how this works is essentially you create some config, right? Maybe you have a block of config here, and you're going to validate it first. So, here we're doing just very preliminary checks to start with. So, we're checking things like um, the syntax, semantics are maybe configs out of order, like one thing needs to be configured first. So we do this validation in a staging memory. So you can see here, still nothing in the running config has changed yet. But once we pass this validation stage and we say, like, okay, everything is good to go, it all looks good, then we're ready to move on to the next stage here, which is actually applying that config. So we've passed our test for validating. We go ahead and apply or actually update the running config over here. And again, we'll either be applying everything or nothing, but we'll never be in this partial config state, right? We won't have, configured a few different features and then stopped because something broke. And lastly, we can actually roll back. So, say you go through this full validation process, everything gets approved, you change the config, and then you think, oh no, that's not what I wanted. You can actually roll back to the previously known states as well.
So no longer you would have to do, reload in 10, for example, before applying a config that could be tricky. Because I mean, I've been there, right? There's like a big config that I'm applying. I'm not sure if I'm gonna lock myself out of the device, right, with that config. So it's like, okay, let me do a reload in 5 just in case before I apply this huge config. So it's reloading 5, you apply the config, cross your fingers, right, that it went well. If it didn't go well, then you just, the box reboots and you'll have it back online in 5 minutes. But with this, you don't need to go and sweat and, be worried that you're going to lock yourself out of the device because it gets checked, all the config, it gets saved in the memory, and all of it applied at once. So especially I would imagine, right, with access lists, with large access lists with a lot of lines, you could lock yourself out, or you could drop the connection, and you're trying to push 10,000 lines of config, and in the middle of it, you get disconnected, something happens, your internet breaks, and then you're left with half a config or even less on the device, half not there. So you're not going to get into these situations anymore with this atomic config, right?
Exactly, exactly. And this is a great use case that you bring up is if you get locked out of the box, for example, you can easily roll back to that known state. And you can even set timers here. So you could say, I want to go ahead and apply the config, but if I don't confirm that commit after, 5 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
so, then we'll automatically roll back. So that handles this case that you're describing. You're locked out of the box, you can't access it. No worries. It will automatically roll back for you if that's what you're looking for, right? If that's the expected
Okay,
behavior.
without doing a reload. And yeah, Herd Nielsen, yes, and forgetting timer reload happens. Yes, remove or forgetting to remove no reload, right? In five. Yeah, I've been there. And then this is nice, David Brown, to get this point. Yes, finally. So we've been talking about this, right? And XR had it for many years now. So I'm glad to see this feature also coming to XE. You get that, commit phase. You have your config. You do a commit, and automatically gets applied instantaneously, basically. So yes, this is a finally a nice feature to see coming on XE also.
Yeah, exactly. So is new to XE, and we have additional innovations around atomic features as well. So be on the lookout for that. More to come here
Okay.
with the atomic config as well.
All right. Um, cool. So this is a nice one. What else we have new for folk story?
Yeah, just a couple more things on the agenda here. So along these same lines of atomic config, atomic replace. So Ansible, we've talked about briefly, right? There's a tooling that you can use to configure your devices. So Ansible itself is not new to iOS XE, but what is new is the netconf and atomic capabilities. So just like what we were showing on the previous slide, these atomic operations, you can work with netconf. You can work with, Python scripts or Ansible playbooks to actually make that happen. And again, we'll have more details on the atomic operations coming soon, but just wanted to share that briefly with Ansible. Um, and similar in terms of tooling here. So we've talked about Terraform in the past, previous sessions, and Terraform here is a provider. So it's a way you can go in and actually configure or work with your excuse me your devices. Typically, we talk about this in terms of RESTconf. That's what we've always highlighted in the past. But what's actually new here is now we have a netconf support, netconf capabilities as well. So before we would always say, okay, if you're using Terraform, you're using RESTconf, but now you can use Terraform with either RESTconf or netconf. So similar to Ansible, you can use, multiple different protocols. Now this capability is available with Terraform as well. And again, more updates to come on this, but just wanted to highlight it briefly here that this is a new innovation, the Terraform plus netconf for iOS XE.
Nice. There's a question that came through here before we jump to the next thing, and we just want to address it. Can you run custom eBPF programs in iOS containers on this new platform? Yeah, I don't see why not. Um, do you see any reason why you wouldn't be able to run eBPF programs in guest shell story?
I don't see or know of any limitations there, no.
Span traffic. Yeah, Jeremy just replied. So you will be an isolated kernel space from the iOS. Yes, it's separate. You will have to span traffic for the space that's needed. Yes, you have to configure span ports and redirect actual traffic to within the within guest shell. All right. So Terraform, Ansible, both of them you can connect to RESTconf, NetConf to the devices. The Ansible collection also hopefully getting some attention, some updates. Like you said, you have some new modules in there. Um, very cool. What else? What else we have? It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we're covering a lot of stuff very quickly here today. I know. It just had some sort of like resources to take us out here. So first, I wanted to highlight. You mentioned already, Cisco Live Amsterdam is coming up. We have quite a few sessions over there for new innovations, new technology that's coming out. So hopefully, we'll see some of you over there. We have a tutorial on programmability. We have a new session all focused on Catalyst or XE image upgrades. We'll focus one session purely on the atomic config replace. So, what we just highlighted in one slide here, we'll get into much more detail over there. As well as we'll talk about all the Google protocols. So, that's one thing we didn't really discuss at all today. So, if you're interested in gRPC, GNMI, GNOI, telemetry, all of this great stuff, we'll have a session on that as well. So, lots to come, lots coming up for Cisco Live. Looking forward to that in February.
And for the Google protocols, we've also had a session with Jeremy on the live stream here. It was a while back. I'm sure there's been some developments. So for folks that want to see what is new with gRPC, GNMI, and GNOI, right, go and see, attend Jeremy's session. Is that going to be Jeremy or you still doing the session?
Yeah, this will be Jeremy's session.
Okay, so it will be a Jeremy session. So make sure you go and see the latest developments. But also, like I said, we have a live stream. It was a while back. If you look in the playlist of Simplify Network Automation with NetGroup, you'll be able to find it. And we've discussed in there about gRPC, GNMI, and we've also had demos. Jamie was showing live demo how this works, on how to enable them, on how to send this data to a, I believe it was Telegraph, Influx, Grafana, right, and get all that data and display it in a nice dashboard.
Yeah, so similar to this one where we have our XE device and then we were talking about Splunk, there's also the option where you can go to Telegraph and then Influx could be your time series database, Grafana could be your visualization tool. So those are all free, open source, publicly available. So that's another option that you have for the telemetry that you were mentioning over here.
Right, but if you're a Splunk customer, right, it's easy and it's going to become even easier once you're able to feed in the data from the device directly to Splunk through streaming telemetry. So I'm excited about that. All right, so Tick Stack, Splunk, all the options are out there. Terraform and Ansible, both on REST, connecting through RESTconf or NetConf to the devices now supported. New modules, Ansible in the Ansible collection. What else we have? You can run custom eBPF programs in guest shell, yes. Especially with Hypershield, right? We're talking briefly about it. You just mentioned the story. So Hypershield is basically running eBPF on each port of the switch. So I would imagine that something similar. Yeah, there you go. Hypershield ready. All these devices.
Mhm.
So it's basically having eBPF running on each port on these switches and being able to make decisions at the port level on policy, on dropping traffic, on enforcing traffic patterns and all of that, and inspecting traffic at the port level. All right, what else did we have story for folks? It's a lot of stuff.
Sure, yes. Just a couple more resources here from mine. So one is the programmability config guide. So this is what I use all the time to go and understand, how to work with these programmatic features. So we've talked about, we've really covered a wide breadth today of a lot of different topics. But to get to the nitty gritty details, the programmability guide, this is done by release. So I've linked here the 1718, the latest version here of the guide. But we're updating this always. You can see the different options that we have for, onboarding with zero touch provisioning. If you want more details on one of the protocols like netconf, restconf, GNMI, gRPC, you can see all of those in the guide as well. And then also application hosting. So we were talking about that briefly towards the beginning of the session. We have all the resources there in the guide describing exactly how this works on XE and how you can get started with it too. So I definitely recommend the programmability guide as your place to go here. As well as we have a programmability website. So you can go over here to developer.cisco.com/iosxe. And here you can find different white papers, you can find different webinars that are linked, code exchanges, the learning labs we've talked about, sandboxes, all of this great stuff is linked over here in this one stop shop on this programmability website. So everything we've talked about today, you can go find it over there. So I mentioned some white papers here. We have another white paper coming out soon that's focused primarily on the telemetry, it's a very specific use case. So we have one here that's an overview on telemetry. We have another one coming up that's very, very specific. And of course, we have additional learnings as part of Cisco U and everything. So that's all the content that I had wanted to be sure to cover today. But yeah, lots of great innovation, lots of great things coming in terms of campus refresh and all the different innovations and capabilities that there are today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for everyone joining this session, and for all the questions. Let's see, did we miss anything? Let me just have a look. If there are any other questions. I learned something new. There's no ZTP on virtual Cat 9Ks because there's no guest shell. LM capability, running them. I mean, would you really want to run an LLM on your switch? Sure, if you really want, but I'm thinking more of having AI agents, like actually pieces of code that do a specific function, or an MCP server running on the switch, right? So something like that, more than having a full-blown LLM or even on an SLM. An SLM, most probably you could run it on a switch, but would you really want to? I mean, it really depends on your use case. But I'm thinking most of around running AI agents, doing specific functionalities, right? And with eBPF, since we mentioned it, you load up an eBPF application in guest shell, right? You span traffic into it, and then you can do anything at that point. Because with eBPF, you get full visibility into all the processes running in guest shell, right? All the traffic on all the ports, and then really sky's the limit on what you can do. So more around keen and running, those types of applications in guest shell than a full-blown LLM or even an SLM. I would see those use cases much more prevalent and more useful, I think, at the end of the day. Okay, so thanks, Greg. Can we get the link for those white papers and guides dropped in the chat? Yes, we'll have the links. Story, please send them to me. I'll add them as comments into the video on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. Thank you all for your time. Thanks, Story, again for doing the presentations. Any final words from you before we wrap up? I have his come out with this sandbox switch. It wasn't me. That was not me.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what's to come next. Yeah, it seems like everyone is interested in AI moving forward to
Mhm.
the future. So I'm looking forward to see how we can use, Cisco switching to help enable that.
And with these brand new switches, right? Lots of 100 gig ports over there, especially on the 10 slot one. Um, lots of new things coming up. All right. So then, thank you all for watching. Next week, we're coming back with month of campus refresh. We'll have Lila Rousseau. We'll talk about Catalyst Center migration workflows. We'll talk about prime infrastructure to Catalyst Center migration tool. So for folks that are still on prime infrastructure, hopefully you're not, but just in case, I got you covered. If you're still on prime infrastructure, you desperately need to move on to Catalyst Center. We'll talk with Lila next week about that. Um, and yeah, thank you all for watching. See you on the next one. Thanks, Tori. Thanks, Jeremy, for your support over there in the back, for answering the questions. And
Thank you.
and hopefully we'll see you, Jeremy, in person. I mean, on video next time. So uh, thanks all. See you on the next one. Take care, folks.
Bye. Thank you.